Hi everyone and welcome to Nursery World 2020. I'm Matt from Family and I have with me the wonderful Cheryl Hadland, Managing Director of Tops Day Nurseries and the founder of Gecko, the green champions for early years. Cheryl, thank you for being with me.
Thank you.
So tomorrow's the big day.
Yes.
Gecko have got their first full day of sustainability conference here at Nursery World, and I want to hear a little bit about how that started and why you're here and what you're kind of hoping to achieve with the day.
Okay. Well, Gecko started to raise awareness for looking after our environment and being sustainable, because it's a bigger vision. You know, long term, we want our children to live healthy lives, and it needs to be beyond just one particular chain of nurseries. So I formed a charity so that I could share that message with everybody and encourage people not to compete over it so much as to embrace it and just become more sustainable in what they do for the sake of our children.
Because in that sense, it's about kind of separating out a little bit from Tops so that it's something that's accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. I didn't want people to think that Tops was, a god in terms of sustainability. We're not. We're on the journey like everybody else is. We're trying really hard to think about sustainability in every decision we make. And I wanted that to be something we could share, not just through Tops.
And when was it for you was the point at which you really started to seriously think about your nurseries and the way in which they're impacting the environment?
It's been quite a gradual process. Many years ago I thought, well, the people providing gas have got a bit of a monopoly on us. Surely there are other ways of doing it, and gas is producing climate change gases, greenhouse gases that are not a good idea. So I had a particular nursery in Wimborne that had oil-fired heating, even worse, and the boiler broke. And I looked around and thought, well, what can I do? Fit gas, use electricity, but if I use electricity, then surely they're burning fossil fuels somewhere to make that electricity, and hit on solar panels. And so that was the very first step, and that was 13 years ago. Obviously, climate change has been around for a long time. We knew about gases that were producing this blanket effect 100 years ago. It's just people have not really paid much attention till recently. And then a big change came for me when I was scuba diving one day, because I love my diving, and I was diving with a guy who came up to me and said, "Oh, I noticed you're using a metal water bottle instead of a plastic one-use bottle." And I said, well, yeah, because I think buying water in plastic bottles that you then throw away is a little bit stupid. It's expensive as well, so I prefer to use a metal one that I just fill up. And he said, absolutely. Do you know what a problem plastic is? Do you know we're chucking a ton of plastic into the ocean every minute? And we're seeing that when we dive. We're seeing plastic rubbish on the beaches, on the bottom. And I started to focus on that, and that was nearly 4 years ago. And came back to my nurseries and thought, oh my goodness, look at all the one-use plastic we're using. From water bottles out on forest school trips, to nappies, to plastic gloves, to plastic aprons, to cling film, to laminating sheets. We were just using a massive amount of plastic. For no apparent reason that it was just quite convenient, and it had been sold to us.
And I wonder whether in that sense, because of course everyone has something that they can do to help with the sustainability journey that we need to go on as a group of people, as a civilization. But do you think that there is something in particular that the early years settings are in some ways more wasteful, or just have more of a responsibility to do something about it? What do you think?
I think because we work in early years, we're looking after the citizens of the future. So we need to try and help them cope with life on into the next 50 years. And if we carry on like we're doing, there won't be humans around in 50 years because we'll have totally wrecked the planet. And I know that sounds a bit extreme. And you can't say that to small children or even their parents because it's too negative. But what we can do is do lots of little steps and then share those little steps with everybody around us. So we can stop using plastic bags in nurseries. Now, many of us stopped plastic bags a long time ago because it was a safety issue. So we're used to this. But what about nappy sacks? What about the bin liners that we put our rubbish in? We can do lots and lots of little steps and then just share them around. And before you know, it'll be an avalanche. And lots of people will be doing the same thing.
And I think that is one of the things that's more, I think people are already really thinking, I'm behind this now. I understand the why. It's so much in the news right now. But where do I, as a nursery owner, for example, where's the best place for me to start if I really want to get going and thinking how can I make my environment more environmentally friendly?
There's a couple of ways of approaching that. Why are you wanting to do it in the first place? Because there is a massive range of things that might interest you as an individual. It might be that that you are interested in plastic because you're a scuba diver or a surfer, or you like being on the beach or walking your dog. In which case, use what you're interested in to start focusing. But then think about, what about the people in your nurseries? What turns them on? What are they interested in? And it might be different things. You might have somebody that is really fit and wants to look after their body, in which case maybe they might be interested in a more vegan diet. It just depends who you are and therefore why you're interested. Once you've established that, I would suggest you look at your bills. Let's see what you can do that actually saves your budget as well as saving the planet. And the things that will probably hit you most are things like your electricity bill, your spend on maybe nappies or maybe one-use plastic. Those big spends are the things where you can make the biggest impact quickest, save a lot of money, and then maybe you'd be prepared to put some of that money towards investing in small things. So for example, say you save a lot of money on your electricity bill by just turning all the lights off over the weekend and making sure that your heating's not over the weekend. And believe me, that sounds so obvious, but when I revisit it at nurseries, you suddenly discover that actually they have left their immersion heater on. And that's happened to me with my focus. So, I believe that can happen to all of us, and we just need to try and correct those mistakes. Clock changes happen. You get an electric failure and everyone's electricity goes off, and you just turn it all back on again. You don't realise, oh my goodness, that's throwing the clocks out. So now I'm heating the nursery from 3 o'clock in the morning instead of maybe 6 or 7 o'clock. And then it starts to get cool in the evening. Instead of looking at your timers, you just turn the heating on for a bit longer. And before you know it, you're heating your building for 16 hours a day instead of 8 hours a day. And by the way, it's on all weekend. So once you've made those savings, have a look at what you could do. I mean, for example, you could swap all your light bulbs to LEDs. You could buy some cloth aprons instead of using plastic aprons. You could invest in maybe a bigger washing machine so you can use more washable nappies instead of using plastic nappies, one-use nappies. There are all kinds of things you can do. We have got this website, Gecko website, it's gecko.org.uk, which has a load of suggestions that you can use. And I've also just written a book about running a more environmentally sustainable nursery, and that's been published by Routledge. It comes out in June, but they're taking pre-orders now, and it's 18 chapters of all the different sorts of things you can do. But I would encourage a dialogue. Start communicating with each other. What worked for you? What didn't work for you?
So starting by working out what's working for you and what isn't.
Well, I think staff practice is an ongoing challenge. We have a staff turnover in our nurseries. I'm sure most nurseries do, maybe around 25% in some nurseries. Some nurseries is nothing. But those with 25%, there's this constant need to re-equip people with knowledge about what they can do and what they can't do. And there is such a lot of greenwash out there. From people selling you little plastic bracelets to supposedly save turtles, when actually it's actually profiteering out of people wanting to do the right thing, to people using words like biodegradable and plastics that are bioplastic. Those two words are real bad ones. Biodegradable means it will eventually biodegrade maybe in 500 years. Probably not before it's killed various, creatures, including humans. So just because something is labelled as biodegradable, do not believe it. Unless it says home compostable, that means you can't throw it away without expecting it to disappear. Biodegradable actually needs to go into a biodegrading machine before it breaks down into anything that's safe to use. So it means nothing.
So we've got to be wary of some of those terms for sure. And I wonder on that, what's been a really challenging moment for you in your journey? Can you maybe think of some times where you think, oh, actually, I got that one wrong, perhaps?
That's happened so many times. Yeah. I mean, the very first time I got caught by biodegradable was someone said, oh, buy these. That was actually dog poo bags for picking up dog poo. So I bought a whole box of biodegradable dog poo bags. And I thought, well, now where's my bag going with the dog poo in it? Does that mean I can just throw it in the bushes and it's going to biodegrade? No, it doesn't. It's going to last 400 years in the bushes. So actually, you've got to put it in a bin where actually they're going to incinerate it, in which case, why did you bother buying biodegradable? Or you'll put it in your general waste bin, in which case it just goes in landfill.
So there's lots to catch you out there. But
lots and lots, and biodegradable is the prime one. Bioplastic is another one. Bioplastic is still plastic. It's going to last for 400 years. The fact they made it out of sugar or corn or whatever is not really very helpful. It's still plastic they're making.
That's really helpful to know, and I think that's something that hopefully we can fast track other people's learning about this sort of thing.
I hope so. And that's partly what we're going to do at the conference tomorrow, is try and break some of those ideas and expose them for what they are. You know, people making money out of people who want to do the right thing and then end up doing the wrong thing.
And what about toys? Because I think this is something that always comes up in this debate, and you have this idea of transitioning away from plastic toys for a whole variety of reasons. But one of the problems is that, of course, you don't want to encourage everyone to just throw out all their resources and do this whole-scale replacement. So kind of where do you stand on that, and how nurseries can approach that better?
I think it's very different. If you've got a brand new nursery, then you can go as natural as possible. Buy wood that's from a sustainable source, use fir cones, use leaves that are hole punched, and have it as natural and as open-ended and curiosity approached as you can. Go to your charity shops and pick up these wonderful old metal scales and interesting old trunks and do a lot of equipping from that. But another position you might be in is you might have a nursery that's been running for 25 years. Or you might be buying a nursery that's that old, and they'll have lots of resources around that have been there for a long time, like Lego. Now, Lego's made out of plastic, and it's going to last for decades, so don't throw it away. Use it, and carry on using it. The only time I wouldn't use something made of plastic is if it's really smelly. If it's really smelly, it's probably putting off quite a dangerous, volatile compound, which is not good for your children, particularly any that have got asthma or any kind of condition like that. So as long as it's not giving off fumes, I would keep it for as long as possible. If you actually don't want it, because maybe it's very brightly coloured and it's antagonising children, I'd consider giving it away or selling it. There's loads of places you can sell toys, eBay and so on, second-hand, or people come and collect toys. Give them away to your parents so that they can have a good long life and be used by children for hundreds of years.
Fantastic, I love it. And I wonder, on that, as kind of a finishing point, I'd love to know a little bit more about the stuff you do to make sure that children are involved on this in this journey as well, that it's not just a bunch of things that you do to change the environment, but actually that you make sure children are also learning about and learning their citizenship of the world, so to speak.
There are different ways of doing that, and there are different schemes that you can enlist on if you want to. So there's Surfers Against Sewage, although I hate the name. There are some positive aspects to come out of that scheme where you take the children out and you pick up rubbish on the beach carefully, risk assessed, supervised, but also you speak with politicians, speak with manufacturers to point out that we don't like to see this rubbish on the beach, whichever way it's coming. So there's that scheme. There's the eco schools, and you can go through that from bronze to silver, and that involves getting children together and talking about things that they can do, recycling in the classroom, and just generally getting them involved in a positive way. Then there's John Blashford, Siraj Blashford's system of sustainable education for children. They've got a passport scheme where they look at helping children learn about their environment and what they can actually do. And I love that too, because they get to learn about what the birds are in their garden, what the insects are in their garden, and how they can support biodiversity. And it's very positive, because we just don't want to frighten the children, because when you're frightened you actually freeze, you can do nothing. So it's got to be positive. There are loads of, you don't have to go on a scheme, you can just get into your nursery, into your gardens and learn with the children. Have books about positive things, about how you can collect plastic and recycle it. Although recycling, plastic, only about 9% of our plastic is actually recycled. So you don't want to buy it and then just generate recycling. You want to keep it out of the bin altogether.
Thank you very much, Cheryl Hadland. Thank you very much for joining us, and we've got plenty more interviews up over this weekend. So over the next few weeks you'll be seeing more and more from us, so stick around and enjoy what we've got coming up. Thank you very much.